Okay, thank you. First, I would like to show you an example of very attractive science communication, and that is not this one. But this one. Maybe some of you have seen this YouTube video, although I think Anouk is now very popular at this moment. But this is also very popular at the moment. This is Chris Hadfield, who has made this in space, and this is an old classic from David Bowie. Maybe you recognize it. And why is this a good form of science communication? I think the first reason is that it's very attractive. The second reason is that it's about science or technology, or science and technology. And the third reason is that a lot of audience, a large audience is reached this way. Okay. I have to switch it off. Okay, what is science communication? Well, in fact, you have already some experience in science communicating, because you are used to write scientific articles, you are used to present your work to an audience, you are used to make a poster. And these are all kinds of science communication, but for an audience of peers, of specialists. And there are other forms of science communication, for instance in the Science Museum, or websites, radio and television, by Twitter or Facebook, or to popular science journals. And all these are different kinds of science communication, and I suppose that most of you have experience with the forms on the left side, and maybe not many have experience with the forms on the right side. In this presentation, I want to address two different topics. I want to say something about science communication from a societal perspective. Why is science communication important for society? And the second thing is, how can you contribute to the communication of science? So, what's your own perspective in this respect? When you have questions, please ask them, or remarks or comments. Please ask them, interrupt me when necessary. Something about why science communication is important. Well, when we look at our future challenges, population density, materials, transport, environment, energy, water, health, aging, climate change, information technology. All these issues have scientific aspects. So it's important that our citizens, that they are aware of the role of science in our community. So this is called scientific literacy. We ask citizens that they are, to some extent, scientific literate. And This means that they have a basic understanding of science, what's called here the basic vocabulary, that they have a general understanding of the nature of science, that they have a general understanding of the role of science in society, and they have a positive attitude towards science. But why is science communication so difficult? Well, maybe because scientists are bad communicators, or maybe because science is difficult and abstract, or maybe because people are not interested in science, or don't understand science, or have negative ideas about science. Well, with respect to the last three bullets, I give some information from research on science education. For instance, what does the public know about science? And there is a lot of research about this, mostly from the US, and they ask the public this kind of questions. They have a sample of a few thousand people, and they ask this kind of questions. And as you can see, these questions are very different. There are open questions, there are closed questions. Some of these questions are extremely difficult to answer. For instance, the third question, explain what a molecule is in your own words. Well, maybe you could try. I'm a chemist, but that is a very difficult question. So it's not strange that about 11% gives a correct answer. And what is a correct answer in this case? So you can criticize this kind of research, but this is the kind of research we have about, which says something about the understanding of the public of scientific issues. There are also some longitudinal results. You can see that about 50% of the Americans, this is for the US situation, that about 50% have an understanding of scientific concepts. There is variation depending on the concept, but on average it's about 50%, and well, this is gives an optimistic view, because you can see a slight improvement here in understanding over a period of 10 years. So the same questions were asked for 10 successive years to the public. We have more information. This is more close from our own country. This is the Eurobarometer. This is a questionnaire which is sent out to European civilians every 5 years, in 2005 and 2010. 1,000 citizens of all EU countries, 27, and also Norway, Switzerland, Turkey, Israel and Croatia. And you can see this kind of results. For instance, the question, what's your interest in scientific discoveries and technological development? And you can see that this interest is very high. You can see that in the Netherlands, about 50% of the citizens is interested in science. That's much higher than the European average, which is about 30%. So that's very hopeful. The question, how informed are you about new scientific discoveries and technological developments? And you can see that most people feel that they are very well or moderately well informed about science. In the Netherlands, that is almost 80%. European Union, about 60%. Some other questions. Scientists are only looking at very specific and technological issues. This makes them unable to oversee problems from a wider perspective. You can see that the public is now less positive about this. The Dutch public, about 50%, think that scientists are not able to oversee problems from a wider perspective. Well, also I represent Finland also here because they have a very, well, unexpected result here. Another question, we can no longer trust scientists to tell the truth about controversial issues. And you can see that about 60% agrees with this statement that scientists cannot be trusted to tell the truth. Another question, science and technology makes our life healthier, easier and more comfortable, and you can see that this is the percentage agreement, you can see that most people agree, although in Netherlands somewhat less people than in the European Union. And you can see also, and that's somewhat disturbing, that it is changing, and that is changing to the wrong side. That means that the trust in or what people expect as the benefits of science, that they are less positive in 2010 than they are in 2005. Okay, this is a remarkable statement. Because of their knowledge, scientists have a power that makes them dangerous. And it's not only a strange statement, it's also, well, for me at least, an unexpected result. Because 40% of the Dutch people agree with this statement, and the European Union about 55%. Okay, we are better than average, that's the positive message here, but I think this is a bad message. And then, and that's about science communication, scientists do not put enough effort into informing the public. And the majority of Dutch people agree with this statement, about 55%, which is somewhat higher than the European average. Last result I will show, that is which of the following areas should be tackled in priority by researchers, and maybe this is not unexpected because about 50% of the 45, I think, of the public think that health is the most important research area for the future. And then energy, environment, social issues, and then other issues, which is a small group. So, what can we conclude from this? What we see is that the public is interested in science. That you can see that the public feels rather well informed, is rather positive about the role of science for society, and is somewhat skeptical about the role of scientists. Are there any questions? Yes?
What do you have for an explanation of the decline in between 2005 and 2010 on what people think about the role of science? That it makes our lives better and more comfortable. I don't know exactly what the question was.
Okay, I will come into this in a few minutes. Okay, yes, all right. No questions, then I proceed. How do you, what's the best way to communicate science? Well, this is an old model, it's an innovation model. That is, scientific knowledge is generated in what is called innovation network. And all we have to do is to inform the market the consumers and the retailers, and conform those who regulate the market, the government. So there is a one-way transmission from knowledge from this innovation network, including scientists, to the market and to the government. This is what is called the deficit model of science communication. The idea is scientists, industries, they have the knowledge and they have to transmit this knowledge to the consumers and to the government. That is the idea. Okay, then we make a step to 1919. Then the mad cow disease broke out, especially in Britain. Well, it's a very serious disease among cow, and it can be people can be infected by this disease. And consumers asked, can I eat British beef? Is eating beef safe? Well, there is an answer, because this is what experts say according to the Times. Eating British beef is completely safe. This is the view of independent British and European scientists, and not just the meat industry. Okay, this is a famous picture. This is the British Minister of Agriculture, John Gunner, with his 4-year-old daughter, eating a hamburger, proving that it is safe to eat beef. Okay, sometime later, this message. Maybe the text below is somewhat vague, but the daughter of a friend of the former agricultural minister John Gunner, who famously tried to prove beef was safe by encouraging his 4-year-old daughter to eat a burger, has died of the human form of mad cow disease. So this is one of the examples that people people do not trust science anymore, less than before. There are other examples, of course. I think all of you can think your own examples. For instance, nuclear power is also, and that means not only that there is some distrust among the public about science, but also that we have to communicate in a different way. These are the premises of the deficit model. That is, scientists are experts, maybe the only experts. Scientists share the same opinion, they agree with each other, and scientists are independent and can be trusted. Okay, another model, because this is much more interactive. In the center you recognize the model I just showed you, but there are other parties involved and they are influencing this process. First of all, mass media, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, politicians, and consumers and citizens, and they are part of the communication process. And that means that this reflects another way of communicating about science, and that is called the dialogic model. That means that scientists do not only inform the public, but they are also listening to the public. For instance, when you are involved in synthesizing a certain drug for a disease, it's very important to inform yourself with patients what their desires are and what they find that, what kind of criteria they will use for a drug. One step further is, and this is called the public engagement model, and this means that the public, the outer circle, is engaged in putting up an innovation agenda. And this is what is called the public engagement model. And this, for instance, is the model for nanoscience. Okay, so what we have seen is that there is a progression from the transmission model, transmission of scientific knowledge, to a dialogue model, to an engagement model. And about your question, Diederik, one of the reasons is that the public has become more skeptical about research has to do with this kind of incidents. Not only this one, what I showed, which got a lot of publicity in the UK, not so much in the Netherlands, but for instance the nuclear accidents in Harrisburg, Chernobyl, Fukushima are examples of incidents who influenced the trust that people have in science and in scientists. Okay, now I make a switch to another part, and that's your own role in this process. How to popularize your own research to journals. Well, there are a lot of popular journals. Well, these are some very important, reputable journals, but there are a lot of websites, of course, and also websites from patient organizations who are keen to pay attention to your research. Well, how could you do that? Now, first of all, there are a lot of scientists who know how important it is, and some of them who have been very important are Albert Einstein. He was one of the first, I think. In 1950, he already wrote a popular book on his theory of relativity. Richard Feynman, physicists, and biologists like Stephen Jay Gould and Richard Dawkins are very well known for their popular science books, and there are many others. So important scientists acknowledge how important it is to write about science. You have, I guess, some experience in writing about your research for scientific journals, maybe The Lancet. Could be. Well, of course there are a lot of differences when you compare a scientific journal like The Lancet with the New Scientist, and there are differences in languages, there are differences in structure, and there are differences in style of the articles. I hope that your attention is not only for the scientific journals, but also the popular scientific journals. I think it's very instructive to read them and to learn how researchers communicate about their research in a popular way. Well, you have to change your story of your research, a scientific message, to a popular story. Well, some hints. What's your message? And I think different than a scientific article, that in a popular message you need only one message, and that's your most important message. And your message has to be important, and that means, and that's especially for journalists, that's important, you have to be the first with a certain discovery, for instance. You have to be the only who did this and this, and you have to be the best. Yeah? You have to try to include that in your message. Your message has to be short and your message has to be clear. What's your target group? What's the relevance of my research for others? That's important. You have to de-jargonize your story. So write it in a popular way. That's not easy. René Fransen, well, after this presentation, he will show you how to do that. And you have to visualize your stories, because pictures are effective messengers, especially in popular science, more effective than text. Okay, when you have contact with the press. My first contact with the press was immediately after my PhD, when I didn't know, but my university sent a press report to the Dutch newspapers. It was an educational research PhD thesis, and I got a phone call from a journalist, and he asked me something about my research. Well, I didn't expect that. So it was very difficult to answer. And what he asked was not, to my opinion, about the most important things of my research. And when it came in the newspaper, well, it was true what was mentioned in the newspaper, but when I had written a message, it would be different, very different. You should realize that that this may occur. So, about the journalist, think about what is his story, because his or her story is different from yours. You should realize that, and sometimes they use your story in another context. So, what's the role of your story in his article? Be aware that journalists themselves are responsible for the message. So you can ask, of course, can I see the text before it appears in the newspaper? You can ask. But a lot of journalists will say, no, I can't, because there's a lot of time pressure. Or they say, no, I don't. Yeah? And sometimes they do. And then, of course, you can say, okay, this is not good. And you can propose a lot of changes, but journalists will not accept these changes. They have their own role. Yeah? And most journalists are professionals, and they are good, they are especially good writers, and they know how to write for the audience they want to address, the readers of the newspaper. Okay, so be very well prepared. That means when you do your research, you know already how to address the press. What's your main message of your research? Yeah? One message. And seek advice. Your supervisor, of course, I suppose he or she has more experience with the press, and the communication officer of the faculty or the hospital or the organization you work. And it's important to know how to communicate science. Okay, I have an exercise now. I want to, I have some work for you that is, tell your popular story in 1 minute. 1 minute is very short. I take the time and you can tell in 1 minute, and it is possible. It's always possible. The popular version of your research in 1 minute. And after 1 minute I give a sign and then we change roles. Okay, you already know who your neighbor is. When you are with 3 it's a complicated situation, but okay. I hope you didn't start. Don't start before I give a sign. Okay, everyone ready? You know who starts? Yeah? You know who will start? Yeah? Okay. 1 minute and then we change. Yes? Okay. Start now. Okay, stop, please. Okay, before we proceed, maybe we can evaluate. But this is an advantage for the second one, of course. But was there one message, for instance? Yeah? Yeah? Was? What's the news? Is there something new? The first, the only, the best? Was there any relevance in this short presentation? And for whom? And was there, and that's very difficult, was there avoidance of jargon? Or maybe your neighbor is your direct colleague, so the neighbor cannot judge whether it was jargon free or not, because he didn't understand. But these are the points for evaluation. Now we go to the second one. Okay, change roles, and we have another 1 minute. Okay? Yes, start now. that the second one was better than the first one, because they have learned from the first presentation, but that's not necessarily true, of course. Well, I hope you realize that it's difficult, very difficult, and now you have one of your peers next to you, but you can try other ones, family, friends, who have a very different background, and try this. And you, when you get good feedback, you will learn a lot of this. Okay. Are there any questions? There is a question over there.
Do you understand that you're
Thank you. I was wondering, with the first only best rule, a lot of the time, I think a lot of people work in the field that there are more research groups doing kind of similar research, and it's all progressing almost at the same pace. So it's difficult to say, well, I'm the only or the best one doing this, because you're all working together. So how would you deal with it?
Yeah, well, I think that, especially for the journalist, it's important that it's something new, what you are doing. So what is the new thing? That's the fundamental question. And it can be that you are doing something, investigating something for the first time, but that would be rather unique, I agree. And I realize that research is something which is done not only by yourself, but by a community of researchers, and you are working on the same topic. But of course, the topic which you are working on, your group or a large community, maybe even an international community of researchers you work on, that might be news. So you should maybe try to be somewhat broader than your own research.
Any other question?
Thank you for your talk. I had a question related to your the first part of the presentation, when it looked like society is losing faith in science.
Yes.
Although I have no trouble understanding that we scientists or researchers have sometimes problems in translating ourselves very clearly, but I also wonder on the role of journalists, because you see this desire to really play on the fear of people, like the mad cow disease, the bird flu, the swine flu, the war on terror, the North Korea, everything, just make people really afraid, and they shut down. So what is the fault all ours, or is also bad journalism playing to sell news?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a fault of individual scientists. I don't believe that, and it's neither a fault or of journalists. But I think one of the reasons I can think about is that society is changing. For instance, through the internet, and that means that critical people, well, they got a lot of opportunities to say what they think. And, well, not only through journalists, because the internet is playing a more important role in this. So it's difficult to see how you can reverse this, that people got more faith in research again. Although the KNW, the Dutch Academy of Science, they acknowledge this problem, and they want to do this because they see that in a number of cases that there was, well, bad news about science, about fraud in science, etc., etc. So I think it's very difficult to reverse, but I think that scientists should be more open to the public, more transparent what they are doing and how they work, including the connections they have with industry, for instance, or with pharmacological companies, because this is one of the reasons that people think that scientists are not independent anymore. So.
Okay, I think this is the last question for Martin, because then we have to move on.
I think that the guidelines from the UMCG for communicating with the press is something like journalists are thinking in black and white, while we think in more grey. What is your opinion on that? That journalists think in black and white instead of in between?
No, I don't think that they. No. I don't think that journalists are thinking in black and white. Most journalists not. The ones I know. So I do not agree with that. Totally not. But maybe you can ask René, because he will present next, and he is a journalist. I'm not a journalist, so you can ask him about this.
Thank you very much. Now we have René Fransen, the science